Everybody, I am 13 and thanks for coming out. I have to start off by apologizing for the rough leagues lately. There's kind of an internal joke with my playgroup that I can't turn things sideways, and I thought Esper Death Shadow was a real was a real deck. Jesus Christ, I'm struggling. I probably kept some bad hands, but I really expected better out of it. Today we're going to be playing five color Tribal Flame Zoo. So I think everybody knows at least one person with a variant of this deck. This is kind of along the lines of like Martyr Proc and 8 Rack and just the decks that people really like to play despite the fact they don't always put up good results. This is an older deck from kind of like Merfolk Twin era. I want to say that was like 2015. Nyazu was like right after Nikado got unbanned. There are a lot of powerful one drops with really good stats, and it's just another twist on a burn deck. It's kind of been consolidated into just Boros Burn, but we're going to see if we can do a good showing with the more flex pieces of it, because I always play the weird versions. So what are we doing? Tribal Flames is a 2-mana sorcery that deals X damage, where X is the number of basic land types among lands that you control. So this translates into it deals 5 damage if you have all 5 basic land types. This can be 5 damage on turn 3, 4 damage on turn 2. We're really just going to try to get a lot of use out of it since we're 5 color. We're also playing with the Zoo package of Wild Nikado. So Wild Nikado is a 1-mana 3/3 if you end up getting a Sacred Foundry in a forest or any other random combination there. And then we have Mantis Riders on the top end. So this is going to be a really fun go wide deck. We're pretty much going to scoop to Blood Moon, but it's going to be a ton of fun. On top of that, we are running the Boros Burn package. So we have Goblin Guide, just another really good 1-mana threat. We have Boros Charm to put 4 to the face or protect our creatures from board clears, as well as the very flexible Lightning Bolt. And we're also running a couple of different cards that show up in other decks that are just on a higher level of power. So Tarka's Command can stop some life gain. It can be reached to ping your opponent. It can ramp you if that's what you're doing, or it can make all of your creatures get +1/+1. The most used game mode that we're going to use here is 3 damage to the opponent, 1 power, 1 toughness to everything that we own. Because we have a lot of Shocklands, we're running Death Shadow, and then Termaglyph is just a resilient beater. So hopefully this is going to go well. I would really like to have a deck actually perform. It's been a while. It feels like it's been a really long while, but we'll go ahead and give this a shot. And so far, we've been waiting to decide who plays first. Guessing that means opponent stepped away for a moment. So kind of looking back, we are playing with a couple of new toys like the Hex Drinker. We get Renegade Rallier to kind of fix our mana as well as bring back threats. And this hand is quite awful. So we have 20 lands. 20 lands is going to put us about 3 mana every game, which is exactly where we want to be at, and this is far too much. Horizon Canopy is a redraw, but it doesn't really help with Tribal Flames. Goif doesn't really have anything that's going to buff it, so we're looking for a couple of resilient 1-drops here. And it's always amazing whenever we start this slow. This might be a timeout game. The Harvester. Alright, well, typically when I have to kill time, I like to see what these actually are. The Harvester. I don't know what that is. That's a new one for me. Alright, we are going to mulligan. Opponent mulliganed as well. This is significantly better. So it's only 1 mana, but this is going to be a Stomping Grounds on 1 with a Lightning Bolt. I clicked on the wrong capture. This is going to be Goblin Guide attacking. Goblin Guide represents the most amount of damage, and then we can follow it up with a Bolt or a Nikado. If we get any other land, we can kind of play it by ear. We're going to ship back the Renegade Rallier. It's the most expensive thing, and I have nothing I really want to buy back at the moment. Opponent's going to 5. And keeps 5. Looking like Dredge. Alright, well hopefully this Goblin Guide's not going to buy them too far out of their mulligan. Unfortunately, Creeping Chill is very mean to this deck. But we're going to get some beats in. Revealing a Stomping Grounds. Alright, well, kind of bought opponent out of mulligan a little bit. This could be some level of Ponza. It's not likely. Like, this is pretty much a stretch. There have been some variants of Jund that play Copperline Gorge, but typically you want a Bolt on one or Inquisition. You don't typically have a Mana Dork. Alright, there's the Cathartic Reunion, discarding Loam and Dark Blast. Dredges the Loam, finds a Bloodghast and a Stinkweed Imp. Gonna draw the Stinkweed Imp. Finding 3 Narcomoebas. Alright. That's pretty busted. I picked up Dark Blast and the Stinkweed Imp. Alright, this isn't great. So probably have to trade the Goblin Guide off for 2 Narcomoebas. Hopefully opponent doesn't triple block. That means that we're probably going to be running out the Nicodle as a 3/3, which is just slightly better than opponent's prized amalgams. Land for Tormagoyf would be great. Tarka's Command can stop Creeping Chill, but that's a little hard to set up. So I can go get a Polluted Delta, Tribal Flames for 4. I think the next step here is see if I can trade off a Bolt for keeping Goblin Guide alive. Revealing a Cathartic Reunion, so opponent's going to be able to explode next turn. Alright, well if they don't triple block, I will 100% keep the Goblin Guide around. They do, so probably just going to make that trade. I could have Tarka's Command here and take care of all 3 of them and shoot them for 3, but I think getting my Goyf out this turn is most important. And honestly, this just means less Narcomoebas that can get in the way of Tormagoyf. So I want the color since I actually have the Tribal Flame, so it's probably the Breeding Pool or the Godless Shrine. Godless Shrine will actually make the Nicodle a 3/3, so let's go Godless Shrine. That'll be the Goyf, and then next turn can be Wild Nicodle, Lightning Bolt, or just shoot 5 damage upstairs if we find a land. So like I was trying to say in the deck tech, this is one of those decks that actually gets a lot of following to it because you can play a different deck every week. So like, I'm running the Death Shadow variant just because I figured I'd be doing a lot of damage to myself. But there are variants with Savage Knuckleblade, variants with Grim Flayers. Opponent appears to be dredging. Oh, it's casting Hogok. Nope, just a Cathartic Reunion, getting rid of the Conflagrate. Dredging a Stinkweed and a Life from the Loam and a Stinkweed. Likely going to make their land drop, bringing back 2 Bloodghasts and 2 prized amalgams. But depending on what flavor of Zoo you want to run, you can run it. The guy at my LGS that runs this gave me a couple of good talking points. Brent, if you're watching this, really solid. He also knows how to play Minecraft like a champ. He joined my server, had a house made of lava and a sheep of every color in like 2 hours. It was ridiculous. But this deck can be really powerful. You just get so much reach when Tribal Flames is able to shoot for 5, when typically you're just leaning on Boros Charm for 4. Hopefully we'll do a little bit better with the sideboard hate. Okay, so that's a Verdant Catacombs. I can Nicodle and Tribal Flames. I can Bolt, attack for 4 Tribal Flames, and put them fairly close to dead. So I'm going to have 5 damage in Tribal Flames and 6 off of that. So if I hit with Tormagoyf, I go up. We don't have an instant in the yard yet, I don't believe. So yeah, I think that's the line. Nicodle just gets to sit back on defense, eat a free Bloodghast. I do need to get my breeding pool here, which is mildly painful, but that means we get to Bolt the only blocker. Swing in for 5, and can I actually take this? I can't because they can conflagrate, so Nicodle does need to come down. Creeping Chill still puts me to dead. In fact, I might just be dead, so they can conflagrate, discard 6 cards, attack in for 10. Yep, super dead. And there's the Creeping Chills. Graveyard Hate. Another nice thing about this deck is you can technically put in just about anything that you want to. So you can add the Remorseless Cleric, the one that exiles the graveyard when you sack it. Skoo's 100% coming in. Lightning Helix, I think we need this just to stay caught up with the Creeping Chills. Destructive Revelry can come in if I'm expecting them to be on Shriekhorn. But I think that's about all I want. Eidolon's probably going to hurt me more than them. Skoos can eat their creatures and gain me some life. Probably, so Renegade Rallier buying back Skoos is actually pretty relevant. Probably just going to trim on some of the Mantis Riders and maybe some 2-drops here. Voice of Resurgence, they're not really going to cast anything during our turn. And we can run it like that. With Hogak gone, I might have gone a little under on the Graveyard Hate in the board. We could have any number of relics or Grafdigger's Cages since we don't really utilize our graveyard or our library like that. On second thought, if I get a moment, I probably want these Mantis Riders, and that means probably trimming Nicodles. This can go over the top of most of their creatures, so I think that that's worth it. We have Bob's in here and Thought Seizes for the control matchups where we kind of don't care about our life total. Voice of Resurgence is also in here for control. If they try to remove any of our creatures or counter our spells, we get a couple of more threats. Destructive Revelry's in here for Urza. Eidolon's in here for Phoenix. But Dredge has kind of been making a resurgence since all the Hogak hate isn't around. They can kind of come back and do their thing. Maybe don't need this much for control. We can put a lot of pressure on. Voice is just such a powerful card, though, in its main deck. But like I was saying, Brent actually has a couple of different variants. So like if he wants to go a little bit spell heavier, he can actually put in Taylor Swift Spear. If he wants to try to go a little bit more on the attrition plan, goes up to 4 Renegade Ralliers. You get the ability to actually run things like Geist of St. Taft because it's just a 5-color threat that comes out and attacks on a different angle. Like you can sub these pieces out for a lot of different things. Like it's 5-color good stuff, so things like Savage Knuckleblade aren't really out of the question. If you want to go a little bit heavier on the 3-drops, you can end up running Coco. And this is fine. This is all 3 mana, a Hexstreaker that can get in through any number of chump blockers. We have a little bit of reach. We can hopefully stop a good Creeping Chill. All right, so they're going to discard. Was that a misclick? Opponent just sent me some question marks. Really don't know what to make of that. I think they F6 through their turn. Well, we know they've got the lightning axe. I think this is putting me on Hex Drinker and a Bolt. Opponent does get a Bloodstained Mire. What are the odds I actually want to just level this up? So if I put the 1 mana in this turn, then I have fully powered up next turn as protection from instants. I didn't even get green. I was too busy trying to think through my line there. Alright, well, whatever. Windswept Heath will get me my forest. You'll actually get the breeding pool, so I still have all 5 colors. I was trying to think through the positives and negatives of actually casting this Hex Drinker and powering it up, because Conflagrate's a sorcery, so it needs to have protection from everything before it's relevant. They found a Faithless Looting with no dredgers in the bin, so they get 2 natural draws and going to discard the Stinkweed that they dredged on turn 1. Found 2 Stinkweeds. Alright, well, opponent, if it makes you feel any better, I punted 2. And this is actually just going to be a Mantis Rider. Put all the pressure on, and then we can cast whatever we've got with Reach. Merca. Swing for 5. Revealing Stinkweed, so they're going to get their Dredge on. Technically, they could kill us if they find all 4 Creeping Chills. Looks like they found 1, but Atarka's Command is going to be doing 5 damage with my 5 damaging creatures. Snow-covered mountain is probably just a flavor decision. I highly doubt they're running Scred. In fact, they flipped most of their deck over. It's pretty much confirmed that they're not running Scred. They have lightning axes in the flex removal spot. Yep, that happens. That is a Tribal Flames. So, Tribal Flames, Hex Drinker. Tribal Flames being sorcery is kind of frustrating. They got their Gemstone Mine. Opponent's going deep on the lava axes, so they have Conflagrate, but not enough cards in hand. Tarka's Command can't save the Goblin Guide. I think that means we just shoot them for 5 and run out of Hex Drinker. If they can't get a blocker or I find a red source, I can just kill them. Seems fair. Opponent's reading Tribal Flames, piecing together what domain means. We have a forest, an island, a plains, a swamp, and a mountain. Or, as most people who sort their cards, a plains, an island, a swamp, a mountain, and a forest. Alright, opponent finally decides to let them take 5. There's the Hex Drinker, so if I level it up 3 times, it'll at least be a 4/4. They get to dredge a Stinkweed Imp here. It's a little unfortunate I can't use Tatarka's Command to cover myself from the life gain, but punts were made when fetching out the Godless Shrine. I was trying to get a Verdant Catacombs, or Overgrown Tomb. Alright, did not find any life gain. It's quite unlikely that they found their Third lightning axe. Most decks only run 2 at most. They do have a black source, so they should be able to actually run out the Stinkweed Imp. But top decking a Mountain or a Tribal Flame should be lethal. I'm guessing opponent just has to be double queued. Dredge doesn't really have intricate decisions. It's just remembering your triggers, and Moto takes care of it. That's fair. All right. Getting on the business end of some burn. That's a Goyf. So we're at least still alive for the moment. Wow, and they hit the double creeping chill. Lovely. All right, well, Dredge gets that one. It's partially because lack of graveyard hate. Failure to turn sideways continues. There are a number of jokes from like, well, 13, what do you do when you reveal a terminus off the top? And it's like, obviously the correct answer is that you try to grin a little bit, but not to the point that it looks like you're showboating. But no, you're supposed to turn the plane sideways. But I just never get it. Like, I just have to understand that creatures turn sideways, and that's how we win games. All right, so immediately starting off, I'm getting my Stomping Grounds. It's going to lead for the Goblin Guide and the Goyf. And hopefully we get to put some damage in. Mana base actually did hurt us a lot last game. Those creeping chills making it... Okay, so we're playing against Infect. Draw step stop means that we're probably playing against a version with a V-click. I know new Teferi's stock. Okay, well, we have a breeding pool, so I think I'm getting a Sacred Foundry here. Just that future Nicodles would be 3/3s. I can still Goblin Guide and Bolt. Alternatively, yeah, I can't really get anything else, so it's just going to be the Sacred Foundry. Just trying to get as much damage out there as possible. There's Blighted Agents, so opponent's 100% on Infect. This is probably going to be a Blighted Agent coming down. Let's see if you got double Mutagenic or a Force of Negation. Force of Negation won't work on your turn. It had to be Mutagenic. All right, and then this Wooded Foothills can get me a... I need blue and black, and I can't get that with any of my mana here. So let's go ahead and just put in the Breeding Pool tapped and Goyf. Found an Ink Moth and a Groundswell. All right, well, opponent's officially on defense, and this Wooded Foothills is going to be getting me a not a breeding pool, a Overgrown Tomb, and Tribal Flames is going to shoot for 5. So they have Groundswell and Become Immense to protect that, but we're just going to shoot for lethal. Opponent has gotten rid of their draw step stop, so they must just really like it, or they have something in their deck that actually cares about it. So if opponent knows what's going on, they're supposed to block the Goyf. Otherwise, I can freely eat a Goblin Guide. Perfect. Yep. You keep your Blighted Agent, then I go get a Swamp and shoot you for 5. Alright, and that's what this deck is supposed to do. So, Infect. Lightning Helix comes in as just more spot removal. Thoughtseize can probably come in. Just that I don't have to deal with some of their removal spells. It's just an easy 1-for-1. It also grows Death Shadow. Eidolon could be a consideration, but we're both playing low CMC decks. Destructive Revelry could be a consideration if I want to try to hit their Inkmoth Nexus. Honestly, we put up a fast enough clock, and I usually don't do that I think we kind of want to just stick to our primary game plan. Mantis Rider can successfully block an Inkmoth. So it's probably going to be this trim. Is there something I care about further down here? We're not going to grind for that. I think I'd rather have the flying blockers. Then Tarka's Command is actually awkward. I think I'd rather buy back a threat. Yeah, let's actually just fully trim the Tarkas and bring in a couple hedges against Inkmoth. Odds are if they're activating Inkmoth, they have protection, but Revelry's a decent consideration there. And here we have removal for the first creature if they start with a creature on 1. Otherwise, we get a Thoughtseize away anything to protect it and see what our current status is. We can cast everything in hand. This is actually lovely for Infect. No creatures stick around. Also snipes a Teferi if they are on the Inkmoth plan with the Teferi out, so that we just can't interact. Oh, we even found some burn. Show me what you got. Spellskite, Spell Pierce, Blighted Agent, Noble. Why didn't you Noble on 1? Alright, well, Spellskite can't get removed with Bolt, so it's going away. This means Noble's coming down, expecting protected with Spell Pierce. That's a guide. I don't think I can actually use the guide, though. So, what do I care about? I can put out Goblin Guide and start putting up a clock. I can bolt on their upkeep, just so that they burn the mana. If I bolt the Noble Hierarch, though, they're probably just going to try to grow it and attack in, since my life total is kind of getting a little low. The Goblin Guide's going to let them hit all their land drops. Okay, well, seeing as how they're not going to kill me with Infect, I'm going to get a threat of my own out. Because I need to start clocking them. I can have all the removal I want, but I have to start clocking them. Vines of the Vastwood. That's kind of a bad one to see. There's a Blighted Agent. So they have Vines for Hexproof. They have Spell Pierce to protect it. So I know they've used these. Might of Old Croza will only be a 2/2. Don't really want to take 3 Infect unless I have to. So first things first, let's attack with Goblin Guide. They have a backup Blighted Agent. That's not great. So they have all the mana. I'm just going to start taxing the cards in their hand here. And the Noble Hierarch is the one that I'd prefer to see go, because this is representing 1 additional damage regardless of which Blighted Agent they're attacking with. And if they want to buff this to protect it, it's not going to be able to attack at me for that amount of damage. Spell Pierce. Alright, so then they can... I want to get the most efficient use out of my mana here, so I'm going to Helix, despite the fact it's not going to resolve. Then that's going to force through the Vines. Then they can Might of Old Kroza and attack in for 6. That's all that they'll be doing, and I'll have 2 more removal spells. Wow, they're just letting it resolve? Okay. Well, that means 1 less free damage every turn, so I'm on board. Alternatively, if I find a island, I can shoot upstairs for 11 damage. And that is a Death Shadow. Alright, so I know opponent's hand, which means that they have a Dismember. Okay. Honestly, though, that's fine. Let's bolt your dude. And actually kill it. There may have been some loose sequencing there, because I do have the Death Shadow. I probably didn't want to gain the 3 life. Okay. That would have me dead. Now opponent has a Dismember and a Might. And I can multi-spell, so I may as well run out the lands. I don't have a Faithless Looting or Pitch outlet, so kind of just need to be okay with that. There's the Dismember, perfectly acceptable. Then if I find a land, I can run out this Death Shadow as a 1/1. Funny enough, opponent actually might need to block this because it puts him dead to a Tribal Flames. They found another Blighted Agent. So time's kind of closing. I need to find a way to lose a bit more life. Or just a burn spell, like a Tribal Flames. Should be 3 more Tribal Flames in the deck, as well as 2 more Bolts and 2 more Helixes. Get in. Alright, fine. Okay, so I actually think that puts me on dead here, because Might of Old Kroza will make it a 4/4, and I already have 5 Infect. Yep. I'm actually going to make them go for it, and they haven't seen the Death Shadow yet, so I don't want to disincentivize them to attack in with Noble Hierarchs and Dryad Arbors. I'm hoping that this here is enough of a bluff that opponent won't go for it, but it looks like we weren't successful. Alright, well, opponent gets that game. Going to sideboards. Being on the play with a burn deck is just always great. Seeing how that one turned out, I'm a little more inclined to bring in Dark Confidant. Dark Confidant and Death Shadow actually don't play well together. That is actually probably a decent consideration. So the logic behind this is that my Dark Confidant will gain me some life when they're trying to kill me with Infect, versus Death Shadow not actually getting the benefit of opponent attacking me. It also means I can bring in the last Destructive Revelry for the Inkmoth Nexus. I don't know, late game Eidolon's probably also worth it. Okay, so this is a turn 1 Nicodle, turn 2 3/3 attack in. This doesn't have like any removal, but it's a fantastic clock. And hopefully opponent's trying to keep a hand with interaction, and I'll just go for the quick kill. It's loose, but it's where I'm at. I really should have just mulliganed this. I am 2 lands away from a Mantis Rider, and I'm not even sure what those are going to be yet. A 3/3 probably isn't good enough versus the deck that can kill you with Scale Up on turn 2. It's going to be a Sacred Foundry, make Nicodle a 3/3. Then I'm actually going to go out with Voice of Resurgence because when he dies, I get a token. So if they're planning on attacking in and scaling up or something, then Voice of Resurgence will actually leave something else behind versus Tarmogoyf just currently being a 1/2. Opponent's trying to figure out exactly how hard to commit for it. Yeah, didn't want to trade a pump spell for my voice. Perfectly makes sense. Then I think I'm just going to swing with Nicodle. Voice is a pretty good blocker. I think that means that I have to get a blue-green land here. Blue-red? No, I don't have blue-red. So I'd like to be able to play Tarmogoyf, and I'd like to be able to have double bolt. So that actually might just be a stomping ground. And that puts me on needing to get a blue source. Alternatively, it's like one of the few times I actually feel like I wanted a Steam Vents. Alright, we'll just do Stomping Ground. That'll be Mr. Goyf. I'll have 2 blockers on the ground. It's very possible they just slam a land, become immense, or scale up and swing out for lethal. Looks like it's not quite there. That's not bad. Opponent currently has no blue mana up. And I really wish this Helix was a bolt. Okay, that's fine. Really don't care about that. I was afraid of the Ink Moth just one-shotting me here. So I can Lightning Helix now. I think I'm supposed to Lightning Helix opponent. That leaves him 1 off of dying. Yeah, let's try to get a creature in the yard, preferably the unblockable one. They should grow Goyf to be a 3/3 or at least put a instant in their yard. Kind of don't care about gaining the 3 life here, and the 2 mana has been awkward. Yep. Acceptable. Oh, and that 1 damage is actually relevant enough. So I swing in. If they don't double block, then I have Bolt and Destructive Revelry. Yeah, I think that's good. It's not quite Tribal Flames, but it's good. So opponent takes 4. I think I have to lead on this. Because that's going to remove one of their pump spells. Or it's going to grow Goyf to the point that another bolt would kill them. Works for me. Mutagenic growth. Okay. So opponent's basically going to have nothing left, and if they invest in the Ink Moth, I have a removal spell. I mean, it could still be Scale Up and Might or something, but... Wild Defiance. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of an instant or sorcery, it gets +3/+3. So if this is Scale Up, they got me. Lame. Well, whatever. Destructive Revelry kills you. Alright, well, we take that. So move up to 1-1. But that was actually an interesting game. Like, we had a removal, we were trying to apply pressure, we had to give and take. That is something that this deck leans to, which is why a lot of people really like to run it. It's pretty solid for what it's trying to do. Tribal Flames is a little bit on the cuter end. Mantis Rider and Death Shadow can get pulled out for just Nyazu. You look significantly closer to a burn deck if that's your current strategy, though. Brent was telling me that Renegade Rallier is the secret all-star of the deck. I haven't really seen that yet. I kind of only ran 2 because I figured Mantis Rider would be hard enough to cast and really high on our top end. And this might actually be the game that we get to see Renegade Rallier show off. It's going to be a turn 2 Goyf, so we're going to be a little bit more conservative with our life total. Followed up with a Mantis Rider. Renegade Rallier with a fetch land, buy back Goyf if it dies. Alternatively, just get another land for Tribal Flames. Alright, looks like control. A little bit of a slow hand for control. Oh, it's Esper Death Shadow. Okay. We should be fairly well set up for this, especially if this comes as a surprise. So that Nicodle actually changes things. I think that Nicodle means that I'm going to go get my breeding pool. No, I have to get the mountain here. So Stomping Ground. Wild Nicodle is a 2/2. And we have our 1 basic in hand. The 1 basic in hand was just that we had a tutorable target for our most used color, and it wouldn't get shut down under a Blood Moon. That's an Atarka's command. Alright, their Death Shadow. Do I actually want to punish their life total yet? I think I'm actually just going to go get a Temple Garden, look a little bit more like Naya. This will... Nope, I have to get a breeding pool. So awkward I can't get the Hollowed Fountain. So awkward. Wait, did a Hollowed Fountain not make it? If you're interested in this deck, you need a Hollowed Fountain. I thought I put one in here. Okay, so this means probably Sacred Foundry. Then I need to find a fetch land. So opponent can't run out of Death Shadow this turn, which means I'm not attacking. They can Pluto Delta, go get a shock, and go down to 14, but they won't be able to Death Shadow if I attack and they can. Probably should have just ran out the forest this turn in hindsight. I could have actually fetched and Renegade Rallier, got back the land. Or the Goyf if I had known it was coming. There's a Gurmag. Tribal Flames on Gurmag actually seems in the realm of plausible here. Although I need a Watery Grave for that to work. This Nurturing Peatland seemed really good on paper, but I don't like it. It's not going to help out the Tribal Flames. So how good of a position am I in if I... Nope, that won't work. I can attack his command at instep and ramp. Sack the Nurturing Peatland, hopefully draw a land or Renegade Rallier, get back the Goyf. Goyf should be bigger than a Gurmag at that point. Yeah, sorry opponent, I'm trying to think it through. Alright, let's see here. I think I'm just passing. Opponent's not going to gain any life, so that's fine. I can grow the Nicodle, but it's going to be too small for the Angler. Yep, I'll take 5. I actually have Death Shadow in this deck, despite the fact you don't know it. Then that means that end step, each opponent takes 3 damage. Put a land card into play. So that's going to be mildly interesting. Are you going to stubby that? That's awesome. Alright, that might open the way for the Tribal Flames. Dang, still no mana of that color. So, Wild Nicodle swing in. They go down to 11. Tribal Flames for 3. Oh, that's awful. That is so bad. Probably should have done that first. I think that means Nicodle has to stay back still. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. So I did learn from playing this yesterday that they don't have Battle Strike. Let's see. What is my best top deck here? I honestly think it's just another Tribal Flames. Voice. So this is going to get me my... Where in the world are my Watery Grapes? Did I not put any other blue cards in? Okay, so I guess that's a breeding pool tapped. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. And I clicked on the wrong thing. Alright, well... Alright, let's just see what opponent's going to do. If I had Renegade Rallier and pick up the Goyf, that would have meant the Gurmag Angler can't attack. Then I could follow it up with a Mantis Rider next turn, and preferably like a Bolt or something to deal with the Spirit. But now I have to actually draw a pain-free land for Mantis Rider to come down and bolt the additional Spirit and hope they don't flash back Lingering Souls. Alright, so they have Stubborn Denial up. Sure, honorable way out. Alright, let's just get a game 2. We can do better in game 2. So, in this matchup, Scavenging Ooze is actually kind of good because they should be running on Earths. Lightning Helix is probably a consideration, definitely like the Thoughtseize. Outs are probably going to be the Atarka's commands again. This is the most awkward reach in the deck. I love this card in Standard, but it is not showing its weight tonight. Then Hexstreaker is still good. Just requires a lot of mana, but Esper's slower than Grixis. Voice is still great. Boros Charm's fine. Maybe not the Helixes. We've already got spot removal that can't kill Termagoy for Death Shadow. Yeah, that's painful. I know I've missed some correct fetches in the past, and this deck definitely punishes that. Alright, like to play first. This is fine. I'm expecting a little bit of a longer game here, and I have all my mana that I need for it. So, Wooded Foothills into Goblin Guide. Again, Stomping Ground is just our most flexible piece here. That's why I keep getting it on turn 1. And gave opponent a Godless Shrine. So if they have discard, they're probably taking the Renegade Rallier. And I think I have to actually just try to burn opponent out here. We have a lot of lands in our hand, so we just need to start punishing him. That's a Mantis Rider, which means this is going to give me my breeding ground. They're going to draw a Ranger Captain, which is actually really good. Oh, now they get the Mantis Rider. Okay, well, it's good we know about that. That might change our fetching. I'm likely getting a Godless Shrine in that case. I already have a Black Source. This is probably still just going to be a breeding pool. That's a Death Shadow. Alright, well, Rallier's only going to get me back a land here, so I actually think I'm just going to be sacking the Horizon Canopy. Next turn, opponent gets to Ranger, assuming they don't actually Fatal Push here. So I crack Horizon Canopy, I find a fetch land, I Renegade Rallier, buy back a land, which is probably the Horizon Canopy for a fresh draw. Alternatively, I just run it out as a 3-2 that's going to get stonewalled by the Ranger or the Gurmag. Yeah, I think I'm just drawing a fresh card here. I need to find some burn. Opponent's on Thought Scour. Didn't find anything good except for potentially a Death Shadow they can unearth. I've noted they didn't get a white source for that Ranger Captain, so if they whiff on a white land, which they didn't, they wouldn't be able to run it out. Assuming that this is Ranger Captain, I'm going to sack the Horizon Canopy with the Breeding Pool, looking for a Bolt. It's likely going to go get another Death Shadow. There it is. Oh boy. That is a Termagoyf. Unfortunately, I think that's for another turn. So I gotta get a Godless Shrine, covers the most land types I don't have. Renegade Rallia. We're going to buy back the Horizon Canopy. No attacks this time around. Not going to let him eat my Goblin Guide to get a free scry. But this means I'm probably looking at a Gurmag Angler as well as a Death Shadow. Potentially holding up Stubbs. I think my opponent's creatures are going to be better than mine at this point. Those are definitely better. Alright, this is reading as potentially has on Earth, but I'm also reading that as make a 3/3 Death Shadow. Yep, that's fine. Alright, let's actually do this in the best way possible. So that's going to be Death Shadow, that's going to be Goyf. I also have another drop, so I need to save blue in case I draw into a Mantis Rider, which means this is going to be my best land to sack, meaning I'll need to find a red source off of one of these lands. I should have a Sacred Foundry left in the deck. Or I'll just run out 2 Death Shadows. That seems fine. And this is only a 4/5. Sacking this, I'll make 6/6 Death Shadows. I don't have another colored source of black to fetch because it's in hand. Yeah, I think you need to put the reps in for this deck. That's what I'm learning here. So sure, Sacred Foundry was biggest payoff. Then this is going to be a Tormagoyf, and this is going to be a Death Shadow. We have some pretty good creatures on both sides of the table. Like, this has actually been leading itself to some interesting games. I can see why people will actually really like these style of decks. Another Ranger Captain means opponent gets another Death Shadow. Means they also get a Fog Us Out of Burn for another turn. If we attack in with everything this turn, then nothing gets through. Attack in with Spirits. I'll just run out another Death Shadow. Is this worth trading for? Why not? I have another one coming. This gets around Street Wraith as well, just not 2 of them. Upkeep, stop. So that's interesting. I can't really do anything super productive with it yet. I also can Scooze and eat 3 things, so don't need to worry about tapping the Godless Shrine here. I am going to pay the life to eat the Lingering Souls, the Ranger Captain, and the Death Shadow. I guess I only get 2. I guess it's going to be the Ranger Captain and the Lingering Souls. They're the 2 hardest to deal with. So an all-out attack here means I kill 2 Lingering Souls tokens, the rest of my board dies, and I probably get killed by a crackback from a Death Shadow with a Fatal Push. Not attacking. Wow, they found another Ranger Captain. Alright, so Death Shadow. Actually, they found a Giver of Runes. Alright, so that will end the game. So they fog us on our turn, they fog on their turn, we just bolt in response. We need a bolt here. It's a Hex Drinker. This only gives protection from one color, so I actually think I'm fine. Let's go ahead and just run out the Hex Drinker. I can level it up 3 times, eat the Death Shadow. That's going to be protection from instants. Then just eat this now. Then if my Hex Streaker doesn't die, that means that I get to swing in with protection from everything. Tell me how your Giver of Runes is working versus my deck of many colors. Alright, worst creature on the table by far right now is Goblin Guide. It is the most unique color, but it shouldn't matter because Hex Drinker is going to be lethal here. They're going deep. I think they see that they're going to die. Sack the Silent Clearing. They're not on snow, which means that they don't have the Dead of Winter, but they could potentially have Damnation or Wrath of God. Honestly, though, I think we're okay with a Wrath of God here. We're the aggro deck. They're at 1. There's a Dismember on the Goyf. They hadn't shown us a Dismember yet. I mean, it's safe to assume that they had it, but Mantis Rider can't get in. All right, Progenitus, get in. You have protection from everything Esper Death Shadowy. Oh, that was a punt. I was actually supposed to attack in with 2 creatures because they could have had Blessed Alliance. Oh, I'm sorry. I still have the chat window block. We have nobody commenting at the moment. Just FYI. Do I care about any of this? I don't believe so. I mean, Dark Confidant's still kind of interesting, but that would mean Dark Confidants and Lightning Helixes come in over Death Shadows and a Mantis Rider. I don't like that. All right, this is a turn 1 Nicodle into a turn 3 or turn 2 3/3 Nicodle and a Goyf. Then we have a Scooz to start buying stuff back and a Lightning Bolt. This hand curves out and has a giant Death Shadow at the end. It's basically all we're looking for. Opponent is leaving up Thought Scour / Push respectively. So may as well just show them the Wild Nicodle. Meow. Alright, Thought Scour. So they either don't have the removal or they want to dismember or try to find better removal. They also didn't have discard on one, which means if they have it here, they had to have drawn into it. Alright, so this Wooded Foothills is probably getting a Breeding Ground. This is going to get a Godless Shrine. That both of those roads lead to Mantis Rider on 3, as well as Tribal Flames hitting for 5. Running out the Goyf pre-combat, it's weak to Fatal Push if they're holding it up, which is completely a possibility, or potentially Dismember, but whatever. There's a Gurmag and a Lingering Souls, so Lingering Souls is slightly awkward. If opponent doesn't flash it back here, probably going to be on skews. Oh, they're stuck on 2 lands. Here comes Mantis Rider. Red, white, and blue. This deck feels really good when it's doing its thing. So I can cast both Death Shadows. I have a Scavenging Ooze to gain life if it turns into a tempo play. I have a Lightning Bolt if any of my creatures go unblocked. And this pause makes me think opponent missed a land drop. Yep, looking for the land drop. Either that or they have another fish. Decent sized Death Shadow. Bolt. My own Death Shadow. Alright, so this is still going to be swinging with everything. They probably chump block everything. Death Shadow probably going in front of the Coddle just because it's less damage. Okay, so that's a thing. I think that means I let damage happen and just bolt the Shadow. Then I can Scoos or just run out of Death Shadow. Honestly, it's probably just going to be the Death Shadow. It's only a 1/1, but I have faith he will grow. Wow, so opponent actually kept a really good hand, but we just curved out and did what we were supposed to. JVP. I love that card. Well, that's in a Coddle. So I think I'm just running out defense. I can't grow this Death Shadow. It's just going to get chumped by JVP. So we'll send in Mantis Rider. Basically put opponent on needing to have a Lingering Souls to survive or to kill me here. And I'm not going to make that easy. I think I want another attacker. Skews is better if they board clear anyway. I don't think I've updated my record. What are we right now? I think we're... No, we're 1-1. This is just match record 1-1. Alright, so they flip Jace, they can Shrinky Dink, Mantis Rider, but then I have 4 lethal attackers on the ground. They can buy back Thought Scour or... Wow, just Thought Scour? Alright, so looking for that Lingering Souls to try to keep themselves alive. They found a Dismember and a Lingering Souls, so that's a start. Maybe Scavenging Ooze would have been better there, but that would have meant that Scavenging Ooze would have been chump blocking if they had 2 blockers. I'm also just drawing live to any bolt. I should have 3 bolts. Did I take out all the Atarka's commands? Yeah, so I have the Boros Charms. Can't pay life for the Godless Shrine. So they do have 5 blockers, which means I just want burn. It's a Thought Seize. That actually makes my Death Shadows better. Means I can't Death Shadow here. There's a Stubbs and Ranger Captain. So Ranger Captain shouldn't be able to get anything with flying. I think Stubborn Denial is probably the best pick here. They can Ranger Captain for a Giver and make a Death Shadow unblockable, but I can only deal with one of these cards, and they have two of the other. So, sure, why not? That Ranger Captain's pretty bad news, though. It means it turns off Tribal Flames as a burnout. Because they'll just sack it at my upkeep. It means that they won't be attacking, though, which is probably pretty good. They found a land. Which means this is probably Ranger Captain, go get a Giver or potentially another Death Shadow. Shrinky Jink the Mantis Rider. And they're going on the aggro plan. Do have to respect them for that. Right now our creatures are lining up and theirs are better than mine. Oh, they're swinging with both? I mean, I suppose that makes sense. They'll just eat two of my creatures. But that means Goblin Guide or Mantis Rider off the top is lethal. Sure. Coddles are probably the weakest here. Death Shadows will grow. Scavenging Ooze can control the yard. Wow. That's impressive. Attack the opponent. They honestly might even just let it through this time around. So now they get a rebuy back Dismember. But that's fine. I'm just going to put a couple of threats on the board and give the ability to eat whatever they try to JVP for. Esper Charm? Deputy of Detention. Okay, that might be game losing here. On the Death Shadow, makes sense. Which means I'm on super chump block duty. But I'm still drawing live to a Bolt. Alright, and they're just going for the Mantis Rider. They're not even going to try to remove it. Might not have been the best line. Just because if they would have tried to flash back to Dismember, I guess I would have eaten it, but I'd be down a creature. Sure, let's gain a life just because we can. Need to block all the things that are lethal. Then I need burn. I'm a burn deck that's seen one lightning bolt. Yep, you need to sack that. That's a Scoos, and that's not going to cut it. Wow, that's depressing. How far off was I? Voice of Resurgences, Goblin Guides. Wow, that is brutal. That is so bad. Just needed one burn spell. I mean, I know I trimmed a couple, but I still had plenty. Mantis Rider technically worked for like 4 turns there. Alright, well, we moved to 1-2 with 5-color zoo shenanigans. Jeez, we have Boros Charms. I trimmed the Atarka's commands. 3 more bolts. We had 4 tribal flames for everything except for that last turn. Alright, this is Nicodle into an Atarka's command or Goyf with tribal flames. Like, these are cards we want in our deck. We have all 5 land types. It's going to be a Stomping Grounds on 1 and probably a Godly Shrine on 2. Opponent's got a Johnny up. Johnny confirmed best planeswalker. He has a squirrel on his stained art glass. Or stained glass art. Those are words MK. Alright, there's a Stomping Grounds. Wild Nicodle. Ship it on back. Opponent's on a snow-covered island. That usually means storm. Actually, these days that could mean Urza as well. Go on out there, little baby Goyf. Spell Snare. Alright, so probably blue-white. I don't know. I've also been spell snared by Phoenix decks, and that's just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so that is a Boros Charm. I think I'm waiting on this Atarka's command. It's not unlikely that opponent has a timely reinforcements on their turn. That's a Teferi. Oh, that's supposed to Boros Charm there. Alright, mistakes were made. We'll just go ahead and get a breeding pool tapped. That's fine. Red, white, and blue. Mantis Rider just in time. And we are going to kill Teferi. Just stop those shenanigans. I also have Burn I want to cast, so let's do that. Run back out my 3/3 Nicodle, and we are threatening lethal this turn. It's very possible opponent ends up just slamming a white source here and Supreme Verdicting, although it looks like they didn't quite get there. Opponent, you're giving us an opportunity to bolt here. We don't have one, but you're giving us the opportunity for it. That might have also just been a basic check to see if we actually have it. Alright, do you have the path? 3 damage to an opponent, and creatures you control get +1. We're going to go red, green, leaving up. Oh, we only have 1 red source? Okay, maybe not. Man, do I just Tribal Flames here, or do I hold up Boros Charm? Opponent left 2 mana up for a very specific reason. I think I'm going to Boros Charm if they tap out. And it's not improbable that they try to counter Boros Charm because they think it's the highest damage in our deck, when Tribal Flames will probably just kill them from here. Alright, well, if you would have fielded our... How often do you get to do this? We're indestructible! They're alive, damn it. It's a miracle. Alright, well, I really don't want to show the tribal flames yet, but I will show this. Alright, control. This is when our life loss package comes in and our cares about life loss package comes out. Destructive Revelry is probably coming in. I don't know, what are we trimming? So Goblin Guides are still great, Bolts are great, Hex Drinkers are fantastic, Voice is great. Atarka's Command is still shown to be really awkward. Like, I like this card, but I don't think that we need that many of them. Destructive Revelries will end up hitting Search First Kanta, although most decks have stopped running those. If they're on the card package, you can get Mycosynth, although if they hit 6 mana without Tron, we're definitely messing up somehow. It can also hit Detention Sphere. Seeing as how they're on Supreme Vert, they're probably not running Deputy of Detention, so that's a consideration. Alternatively, Scavenging Ooze is a counter for Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, I think I just talked myself into... Bolt can also kill a little Planeswalker. Sure. We still want to end this as fast as possible, but we get the ability to grind a little bit better with this setup. Nicodle, Hexdrinker, Bolt. This probably isn't strong enough, but we have our lands. We can power up Hexdrinker a couple of times. Nicodle's going to take the first path. Sure. We'll give this a shot. This is going to be a little bit longer. We can always cash in one of our extra lands here. Going down a card is a real cost. Alright, friendly little stomping grounds. You're always my first pick. So if they path me, that means that I get to power up Hexdrinker 3 times, get protection from instants. Board clears will still nab him, but... Oh, they missed their land drop. Okay. Whatever you're saying, I'm on board so far. I'm probably just going to get a Godless Shrine for color fixing here. Odds of me actually wanting to Lightning Bolt anything are pretty unlikely, so... Yeah, let's just do that to grow the Nicodle, play the Hexdrinker, and hit for 3. Okay, opponent's going deep. You honestly don't have very many options. You're only looking for a land. And that's not a land. Alright. Let's do this. We're going to get a forest because I kind of don't care about my life total anymore and the breeding pool's in hand. We are going to Renegade Rallier. We're going to pick up the Wooded Foothills. Wooded Foothills. Go get a Blood Crypt. Untapped. Shoot you for 3. And swing in for 5. With lethal on table. Alright. Pretty decisive. Whenever I play control, aggro is always a tough matchup. Part of the reason I'm always an advocate of the Terminus plan. I know some people are walking away from it at the moment, but it is just so powerful, and it really shuts down any of these kind of go wider strategies. And there's been a good number of them lately. And on top of that, you also put them back in the deck, so the strategies like Dredge that we lost to earlier, they just go back into the deck as opposed to in the graveyard and attacking you again next turn. I mean, I know game 2 there was opponent got mana screwed, but we also put up very respectable numbers for a very awkward hand. Like, we had them dead on turn 3, well, turn 4, a couple of different ways actually. And we didn't even see our Tribal Flames, which is just 5 damage. But I can definitely see why people like this deck. Like I said, I'm not really apt at turning creatures sideways. It's just not my play strategy. But I've been enjoying this. Like, we've had a couple of really good face-offs. That game versus Esper Death Shadow, like, we should have taken it, but just had a couple of bad draws back to back to back. I am starting to think that 20 lands might be a bit much for this deck. We're probably looking more at the 19 wheelhouse, potentially 18. And winning the coin flip is just huge. So we can't play the Death Shadow. We're ways off from the Renegade Rallier, and Atarka's Command is awkward. Hex Drinker's a late game, so that puts us on a 3-card hand, so that's a pretty easy mulligan. This is a Stomping Grounds into a Godless Shrine for a Wild Nicotl, and then hopefully finding a blue source. This is probably okay. I am going to ship back one of the Mantis Riders, though. I think Renegade Rallier is going to be a little bit stronger than a second flying threat. Tarka's Command also might have been a decent ship back, but I'm probably going to cast on turn 2 just for 4 damage. It's good enough for Boros Charm. It's probably good enough for Tarka's Command. All right, Mr. Kitty, you got a lot on your back. And he's dead. Nope, but I'm assuming Renegade Rallier is. This is looking like Jund, potentially Mardu Pyromancer. Which means Renegade Rallier is a 2-for-1. Where a Mantis Rider just dies to a bolt. Opponent's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We're 5 colors, dude. Represent. I don't know my lore very well, but I think this is Conflux. This is where all 5 colors come together and do things. We even have a shard and a wedge, and they took the Atarka's Command. So that must mean opponent has more discard coming. They're just trying to take us off of our turn 2 play. That's a Hex Drinker. That's not terrible. So this is putting me on Godless Shrine again. That's going to give me my planes for the Wild Nicotl, as well as setting up for Mantis Rider or Renegade Rallier. Entering tapped means Hex Drinker. Do I actually want to pay 2 life? This is Jund. I don't want to pay 2 life to get a single level up. Although, if I miss my land drop, my turn's going to be powering up this Hex Drinker. So yeah, we're gonna level the dude up. I have faith he can go the distance. All right, go on, Mr. Kitty. I believe in you. It's so hard to believe that you're on the ban list once. You ain't got nothing on Blazing Shoal. Alright, so opponent's been pretty deliberate so far. Probably taking the... Yep, Mantis Rider's most awkward. Oh. Okay. Oh. That's so awkward. I think I just have to power this dude up. Get him protection while I can. If they have a Damnation coming, they have a Damnation coming. But for now, this is half their life total. And if they kill any of these, I can just Renegade Rallier it back next turn. What is the benefit to powering up? I can crack and go get my breeding pool. I'll take a decent amount of damage, but that means if I top deck a land, it's going to be a 6/6 protection from everything. Alternatively, I know I can Renegade Rallier next turn. Yeah, I think I'm just going to wait. Renegade Rallier is going to be 2 level ups for the protection from everything, so if they actually do commit to their board here, that's fine. I'm kind of expecting a Liliana. The Baronmore's kind of awkward. This is probably just because of Wrenn and 6. Yep, they had a Wrenn and 6 and a Spell Bomb. Oh, I wasn't supposed to crack that. Oh. Yeah, that's bad. That's fine, though. This should be lethal. So they go all out on chump blocking it. I just pump up and we're good. Yeah, so for those of you following at home, cracking the fetch land there meant that I didn't have Revolt for this Renegade Rallier. So they have seen an Atarka's Command already. What are the odds they actually play around it? The smart play is just Elemental, but they could be tempted to go for a kill on either of them and chump block the other. Okay, that's fine. So 3 damage to each opponent. Creatures I control get +1/+1. Ta-da! You dead. Alright, Jund. Scavenging Ooze comes in. Lightning Helix is a consideration just because I want to be able to kill Bob, but I have plenty of removal. Thoughtseize, so typically Jund and Golgari and Abzan board these out against each other because it often comes to top decks and they're terrible top decks. If that's the game plan, I'm thinking I want my Bobs. Death Shadow can probably come out. Like, I'd rather have Bob over Death Shadow. This is a very powerful card, but when your life total is fluctuating, you don't really want to deal with that at all. Squeeze can also gain back life from Bob. We are going to turn into a little bit more of a traditional Jund list here. We still have 5 colors, but I think this means I'm trimming a Atarka's Command. I don't know. That's just been so awkward. I think I'd rather have the Helixes without the Death Shadows in the deck. And we can run it like that. CMC still pretty low. Like, this is a very delicious looking Bob deck. 14 1-drops, 22 drops, which is a little bit on the top end. Renegade Rallier can actually buy back Bob. Hopefully we just don't do too much to ourselves trying to get this all started. Opponent did have a little bit of a slower start with just a discard spell and a tap land. But Nikata went the distance. So I am thinking Atarka's Command might be too cute. It was just so good in Standard, but it's been a little awkward. It is being a serviceable Boros Charm, but Boros Charm did save us from Supreme Verdict in our blue-white control matchup. Atarka's Command could technically be land ramp, and it's kind of cute with Death Shadow because you can put in a shock land and pay 2 life and grow Death Shadow as a combat trick, as well as giving all your creatures +1/+1. I do feel like it's a little bit more flexible, but a lot of the times I feel like I'd rather just have another creature or another burn spell. I think we probably do need some number of Helix's main board, and as good as Death Shadow is, seeing as how we don't tinker with our life total and our Thoughtseizes are on the board with no Street Wraiths, it's been kind of awkward. Every time that we've had them, like, we got shown up by the Esper Death Shadow list, which kind of makes sense. They're devoted to that deck strategy. But we ran them out, and they're just okay on the ground. We had no way to trample over. It was actually the same problems I was experiencing yesterday with Esper Death Shadow. It just didn't actually accomplish anything. Like, yes, it's a vanilla creature for cheap, and that's kind of what our deck's trying to do, but it came down late game when we're trying to be a quick burn deck. So just a couple of thoughts. I'll probably do a little bit more at the end when I try to wrap it up. This hand, despite having a curve, is actually quite bad. We have 4 lands, which is too many. Again, I'd probably go down a land. I think 20 might be too much for this type of deck. But we have temporary spells that we kind of want to hold, and then a Rallier at the end that at best is buying back a land when our curve stops at 3. This is significantly better. So keep this, ship back the Hex Drinker. Opponent is also on the Mold of 6. They decide to keep. Hex Drinker's just better late game. So this time around, I actually think I'm going to start on Temple Gardens and go get Blood Crypt. There you go, Mr. Kitty. Come back, do some work. Opponents try to figure out if it's worth bolting Mr. Kitty. Well, it's not a Wrenn and 6, so maybe a Collective Brutality? Alright. Well, our Goyf is currently not boltable, which is nice. And that's actually the mana cast Mantis Rider. Doesn't just feel great when a plan comes together. There's Mental Goyf. Peatland. So this might be a Lily? No, it's a Goyf of their own. Oh boy. Do I actually Tribal Flames here? I feel like I'm supposed to Tribal Flames here. Alternatively, I could Voice into Coddle, or just attack in for 3. So Tribal Flames is going to kill Goyf. Unless they find a way to get 2 types into the yard, which would probably be a Tarfire. I really wouldn't put it past them to have a Tarfire in their list. Just be ahead on Goyf. Alternatively, cover versus a Lily. Odds are there's a Bloodbraid next turn. If there's a Bloodbraid next turn, I just want my Goyf to get some damage in. And Tribal Flame's reach is actually why that's good. So let's Marika it up. Send in my Mantis Rider. Oh, that's depressing. So Voice and Nikotl was the better line there. Sorry, that's results-based bias. So I think Mantis Rider was the correct call there, but I probably should have taken the consideration that they'd have a Lightning Bolt up off the Blood Crypt. All right, that is a Wrenn and 6. That's probably going to get plus, so that's going to eat the Tribal Flames. Just because I don't want to have to try to play this game. They're going to be better at it. What are the odds that they have another frickin' bolt? Probably pretty high. So if they have a push, this line's weaker. But I think I'm going to try to kill the Goyf and then attack Wrenn. And that means I need to leave up the green for Wild Nikotl, so I have a threat next turn. There's been a couple of pause to read Tribal Flames tonight. It's been circling my LGS for so long, I figured it was just like commonplace, but apparently most people haven't seen it. Brent, if you did find this and you're still listening, you done right by me. You've really done right by me. Alright, so then this Wild Nikotl should bait out the bolt if they have another bolt. Haha! That means Mantis Rider is going to be safe next turn. I should be swinging for 8. Yep, Seasoned Pyromancer's fine. They do get a fresh draw. They had another Seasoned Pyromancer? Okay, well, they only found a land so far. And probably a push. This is reading like a push. Yep, alright. Mr. Goyf is down. But Mantis Rider's still free and clear in the air. I don't like Goblin Guide in this matchup. Giving them additional cards, especially if they're on the Liliana plan, is just so bad. But let's get some air beats in. Dude's got to have some sick headphones if he's riding through the air on a Mantis. Plague Engineer. What do you even name? We're 5-color random shenanigans. I mean, they can name human, but that's going to make their season pyromancer worse. I guess they could name mantis. Monk. Sorry, monk. Naming monk will put them on a 5-turn clock, not knowing about any of our burn or goblin guide in hand. Are you really thinking about it that hard? You've seen a Mistle Kitty, you've seen a warrior, you've seen the Lurgoyf, you've seen Mantis Rider. Yep. Oh, it's only your opponent's control? Probably would have been better to name human at that point. Alright, so opponent gets to swing in for 5, but we're going to have plenty of blockers. Yep, that's fine. That is a Boros charm. Does that significantly change anything? I think that just means that Goblin Guide gets in, Voice of Resurgence blocks, and then I can try to kill opponent next turn, assuming that they don't have shenanigans afoot. Revealing a Ghost Quarter. So they get the Ghost Quarter. That's slightly bad. They could hit our only red source. We could go get a forest, but they hit our only red source. Alright, not killing Goblin Guide there means that our voice token is going to be pretty big. And then I guess that means we're just drawing live to a mountain. Alright, so they haven't ran out their other card yet. They have a redraw in the Peatland. Sorry, getting some text messages here. Yep. Voice of Resurgence token comes in as a 3/3. Alright, there's a Termagoyf. They can't sack the Peatland because that's their only green source. Now are they ghost quartering me? Yes, they are. Alright, so Boros Charm doesn't quite get there. That kind of gets me there. So I swing in with all 3. Plague Engineer blocks the Elemental. Goyf eats the Goblin Guy. There's no point in doing that. So Mantis Rider's just going to hit for 1. Well, for 2, but they're going to hit once. Then that means that I block for this turn and then kill them. Or they tap for green and then I kill them. I'm good with either of those outcomes. By the way, opponent, mad respect, I love Avatar of Woe. Such a good card. I've tried to make it work in Modern, it just doesn't. Like, you can enable it, but by the time that you're paying 2 mana for a 6/5, it's too slow. You're just better off with the Gurmag Angler. Oh boy. Alright, I suppose that this means I have to actually go for it. Because this is representing multiple turns that I don't have to do anything. But given as that was their last card, I think I win. They swing in with everything. I let 2 go through, swing back in the air for lethal. They do get a draw into a bolt. That is their right. They may have actually found a Fatal Push. If they did, it probably would have been better to cast it pre-combat, though. Alright, so I'm doing it this way because that has Death Touch. I'd prefer to have the attacker on the crack back in case they do have Fatal Push. Oh yeah, our creature shrink. I suppose that's fair. Alright, and we took it. So 3-2. As is tradition, we will open up our treasure chest. Oh my gosh, there's so much crap I don't have. Big money! Spellbreaker's fine. I know some people have tried it in aggressive Gruul Shells in Modern, but 20 play points is alright. Alright, so what do we think of 5-color Tribal Zoo? So I've kind of like tried to bring up some thoughts across the middle, so if you stuck around the entire time, you're probably going to hear some duplicates. Hexdrinker was actually pretty impressive. I think that 1-2 is the sweet spot. You don't want 4. A 1-mana 2-1 isn't necessarily what this deck's trying to do. That slot's currently being filled by Wild Nicodle, although the number of times that opponents kind of stabilized and ran out some creatures and you can go full-blown Progenitus on them, that did come up, I think, twice tonight. Like, it's been pretty good when it's been good. And I think that's about the same logic that Jund players have had so far. Like, it's the best card when it's the best card, but you don't want to draw it unless it's the best card, which is about 1 to 2 cards is going to do. Atarka's Command is perfectly serviceable. It is better than Boros Charm in this deck because you have multiple creatures that you can give +1/+1 to. You can also do some shenanigans if you are on the Death Shadow build. This is a pet deck for people that like aggressive decks, and it really shows why. Like, I was even having fun, and I can't turn things sideways to save my life. Like, you have some very interesting lines. You have to understand what to bolt and when to attack. You are living off the top of your deck, but that's kind of okay. I don't really think that the Horizon lands were correct in this list. We also wanted a Hollowed Fountain and probably another, maybe a Watery Grave, just another blue source. The lands didn't always have the ability to go get the island for Tribal Flames, but Tribal Flames having 5 damage is just fantastic reach. Sideboard could use some help. We lost to Dredge because that was just bad. We kind of lost to Esper Death Shadow because of some bad top decks. Going down to 18 or 19 lands is probably respectable. Renegade Rallier also did show some strength. If your opponent Fatal Pushes your Nicodle or your Goyf, then you can actually buy it back on turn 3. And so you're putting 3 power on the table as well as buying back a creature they thought was worth spending a card on. Helix is also probably okay somewhere in the main. Again, it's that 2-drop spell slot. The nice thing about this deck, though, is if you want to play a variety of Zoo decks, this is the shell that you want. So you can go full-blown Naya, you can play a little bit more of a Burn shell, you can play a little bit more of a Zoo spell. If you just want to play 5-color good stuff, like you want to get a little Savage Knuckleblade action on, you can. Mantis Rider is serviceable. You could just trim it and not run blue. Tribal Flames for 4 damage is perfectly acceptable, although you probably want to go 4 bolts before the Tribal Flames, just because it's an instant, has a little bit more utility. And given your multicolored deck, getting the additional white's not necessarily a problem. Eidolon on the side was in there for Phoenix. It never really came up. I figured it was worthwhile, but that's probably me just having an irrational fear of Phoenix and Arya and all that shenanigans. But, I mean, I'd endorse this one. I don't think I'd say it's your best first deck ever, but if you aren't really sure what you're wanting to play and you pick up a couple of pieces here and there, I know a couple of my friends getting into Magic have had that exact train of thought where it's like, I'm going to pick up like 1 or 2 of every fetch land or 1 or 2 of every shock and kind of play budget along the way and test out a couple of different decks. This was a pretty decent starting point, and I had fun with the creatures. But Thanks everyone for sticking around. This was actually a pretty decent showing. Been struggling a little bit lately. Just have not had the best record the past week, but also been playing a ton of jank. I am thirteene. I do a lot of fun janky decks for Squirrel Dealer. If you have a fun deck idea or you want us to try to review, try to help you build, feel free to send the link to decks@squirreldealer.com. We'll always get back to you. We play a ton of random shenanigans, and Brad1 plays a couple more competitive decks, so if you want to check any of those out, hit up Squirrel Dealer on YouTube. We've got all the replays up there, as well as if you like our content, the Squirrel Dealer staff account on Twitch will actually host all the videos. If you want to ask us a question or tell us just how bad we suck, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or hit me directly at thirteene on Reddit. And thanks everyone for sticking around tonight. I will be back Wednesday. Brad1 will be here tomorrow. I'm not sure what he's playing. I think it might be blue-white, but should be some fun. And I will talk to you all later.